Well, I've been procrastinating on this video for a while, but with the release of Pikmin 3 Deluxe, I decided to talk about 4 Nintendo games that I would like to see Nintendo remaster at some point in the future. So let's get into them. Hey everybody, Bloodman Bobby here. So, with the release of Pikmin 3 Deluxe, I decided to talk about 4 games that I would like to see Nintendo remaster on the Switch at some point in the future. And also, the release of Super Mario 3D All-Stars gave me a glimmer of hope that maybe Nintendo would consider remastering some GameCube and Wii games, because in that collection, Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy are GameCube and Wii games respectively. So, I'm mainly going to be talking about 4 games that I would like to see remastered that I have had the most experience in. This is by no means a complete list of games that I would like to see Nintendo remaster on the Switch. I mean, I know people complain that the Switch has too many ports, and it's not that I'm saying every game Nintendo releases should be like a port or something. You know, I much prefer when Nintendo prioritizes original games for the Switch like Animal Crossing, New Horizons, and Super Mario Odyssey. But in terms of which games I would personally like to see them remaster, these are the 4 I would like to see them do, and these are the ones I have the most experience in. So I'm going to go about this video in a sort of Adam Koralik style, where I just like hold up the game and tell you my personal experiences with him. I've been kind of inspired by him lately. Let's go ahead and start off with the first game. Since Pikmin 3 Deluxe just came out, I think it would make most sense for me to start off with the original Pikmin, which I actually played this game with my sister fairly recently, and it's still a really fun game to play. Basically, if you don't know the premise of the original Pikmin, you play as the character Captain Olimar, this space captain who crash lands on this mysterious planet, and you go around with these tiny vegetable-looking characters called the Pikmin, and you go around looking for his rocket ship parts, while at the same time fighting off a whole bunch of these enemies. It is a lot of fun going around, you know, and doing this sort of like treasure hunt where you're going to these mysterious lands and trying to find all these rocket ship parts. And it's actually like quite challenging because of all the enemies that you have to pass through, and you have to kind of think out, okay, what am I going to do today? How many parts can I get? Which enemies do I have to fight, or which ones are still dead? Because it takes a couple days for some of these enemies to respawn. And I also really like the enemy designs in the original Pikmin. I think they're legitimately terrifying, and they're really creative designs. I think of characters like the Bulborb. I think the Whooping Snitchbug is also really creepy looking, and of course characters like the Beady Longlegs and characters like the Fiery Blowhog. Just things that like you could never or like dream of, and you see these enemies like going around and attacking your Pikmin, and you really want to fight and take them on. And I think the Pikmin games also do a really good job of making you feel like you're in this world, like you actually feel like you're these really tiny, minuscule characters having to fend off these really giant enemies, and that just makes the game more engaging and kind of intimidating in a way. So it's definitely still a little fun game to play. I'm surprised that even years later, this is still quite a challenge for me and my sister to play, but I still recommend this game. I could see if this game was released on Switch, it would really look good in HD, whether you're playing on the Switch handheld or you're playing it docked. I think it would be a really fun game to play for the Switch. So yes, the first Pikmin. But let's not stop there. Let's keep going with Pikmin 2. Ooh, again, in very similar premise. This time, you're actually playing as both Olimar and his partner, Louis, and later on in the game, you get to play as the president of their company. And so in this game, you're not looking for rocket ship parts. You're actually looking for so-called treasures, which are basically, you could say, like everyday household objects, and even some Nintendo references. Like I know in the game, you could find things like a Duracell battery, a Game & Watch handheld, a Rob the Robot head, so many others that I could name. And you're basically collecting these objects because you're trying to get Olimar's company out of debt, and you're using these objects to basically pay for them. So it's a very similar idea. You're going around looking for these treasures and fighting off a bunch of enemies. I would consider playing Pikmin 2 again. I probably really should replay it. I wanted to get through the first one with my sis first. It's kind of like a bonding thing for the two of us. We really enjoy playing the Pikmin games together, but I'm interested in trying this again, and because I got into some multitasking strategies with the first Pikmin, and I'm really curious to see how they would work in Pikmin 2, especially since you can switch between two characters in this version, whether it's Olimar and Louis or Olimar and the president of their company. And so once again, you're also fighting off enemies to get a lot of these parts. Again, I really like the designs, and there's honestly moments in Pikmin 2 that actually legitimately scared the shit out of me as a kid, because like, keep in mind, I was a little kid when I played this game, so some of the enemy designs were really legitimately creeping me out. Not to a point where I was like crying and running away from the GameCube. Okay, maybe for one of them, but I could think of two, like, just two of the enemies alone that really creeped me out as a kid. The first one was this character called the Creeping Chrysanthemum. So basically, the reason I was scared of this character as a kid was because I remember I did not know this enemy existed in the game, because keep in mind, going from Pikmin 1 and 2, there are new enemies in Pikmin 2. So I'm just walking around, minding my own business with Olimar and the Pikmin, and suddenly, boom! This enemy comes popping out, and there's this really creepy plant-looking enemy with like, it's got like sunflowers on it, with eyes on it, and there's like this giant big mouth on it that just like goes around and starts eating the Pikmin. And I was not suspecting that at all. And pro tip, if you are on the lookout for this enemy, look out especially in areas where there are sunflowers. If you can see eyes in the middle of the sunflower, then that means the Creeping Chrysanthemum is there. So approach that enemy with caution. And this other enemy who is in the first Pikmin as well, but I was really introduced to this enemy in the second game that scared the shit out of me and my sis, was the beady longlegs. Basically, it's this giant spider-looking monster that looks like a giant, well, daddy longlegs. And so I was playing Olimar and going around with the Pikmin, again, just walking in. I knew I was going to have to fight it because it was like a boss battle in this game, and so I go in, there's a shadow of a spider web on the ground, and so I'm thinking, oh, it's probably gonna come out, and then boom, and it just like comes out of nowhere from the sky. I remember me and my sis, we actually like screamed when we saw that. It just scared the shit out of us, and our mom was like, did a Nintendo game really scare you? And I'm just thinking, if only you were there right before that scary-ass monster came down. And we eventually defeated it, lost quite a few Pikmin in the process. But still, still, it was still an enjoyable boss fight. By the way, something that I just came to mind is that in Pikmin 2, you don't have, the thing about the Pikmin games is that they kind of work in days. There's a time limit for each day of the game, and this one has a 30-day time limit for each day you spend in the game. This one, I don't think it has that. It certainly doesn't have a 30-day time limit, but I've heard somewhere that it goes up to 99, so you have much more time to collect the treasures in Pikmin 2. There's many other enemies that I could name many others. I could think of things like the burrowing snagret, the like armored cannon beetle larva. I also remember me and my sis, we faced both the Emperor Bulblax and the Empress Bulblax in Pikmin 2. Just really crazy boss fights, but still a really fun game. I'd really like to see Nintendo bring Pikmin 2 at some point. I was thinking maybe Nintendo could do a sort of thing like with Super Mario 3D All-Stars, where maybe they could release Pikmin 1, 2, and 3 together in some sort of set collection. Although I am concerned that if they go that route, they might release it for a limited time only, kind of like what they're doing with the first Fire Emblem game and Super Mario 3D All-Stars. But at some point, I would like to see Nintendo bring these two games over to the Switch. And now we go over to the non-Pikmin part of this video. So, another game I'd like to see Nintendo make, I'm kind of surprised they never made a sequel to this game, is Kirby Airride, a Kirby racing game for the Nintendo GameCube. Basically, the idea of this game is you go around as Kirby, and you could also play as multiple variations of Kirby and other characters. You can unlock like King Dedede and Meta Knight, and it's basically a very simple racing game where you're going around in these really creative courses, racing each other, and all sorts of different unlockable like stars. Like, it's not just the warp star that Kirby uses here. You can see on the back you can also unlock things like this bike, if I could point at the correct object. And there's many other unlockable stars and bikes and other vehicles that are available in the game. And you could also play as Meta Knight and King Dedede. So there's a couple racing modes you could play. There's also this really cool one called City Trial, where you're flying around this really crazy city in order to collect power-ups so that you could take on your friends in some sort of match at the very end of the trial. I think some of the steering controls may come off as a little awkward for newcomers, but it's still a really fun game to play. So maybe if Nintendo were to release a remastered version of Kirby Air Ride, of course, would be really nice if they released it in HD. And maybe, because in the GameCube version, they had some sort of multiplayer broadband mode, so maybe they could replace that with an online play feature using a Nintendo Switch Online subscription. Yeah, so it's still a really fun game. I really like the different course designs that are in the game. The City Trial is a lot of fun. I really like how they have all these different variations of the different stars and vehicles that you could play at in Kirby Air Ride. I remember I used to like just go around and just want to try them all out because I thought they all looked really cool. So yeah, Kirby Air Ride. I would like to see Nintendo remaster this game at some point for the Switch. And now we go on to the last game I have here on this video, and the sole Wii game I have here, and that is Excite Truck. You might remember this game from back when the Nintendo Wii launched. It was one of the launch titles. I kind of regret not being able to get this game back when the Wii first launched, but I eventually did get it soon after. So it's this really chaotic racing game where you're basically playing as all these different types of trucks and even SUVs and going around the world playing in courses in countries like Mexico, Fiji, Scotland, and many others. And I still remember it was a lot of fun to play. Really utilized the Wii's Wiimote, where you could just move the Wiimote around like it's a steering wheel and just go around in these courses, driving really crazily, crashing into other trucks, and pulling off all these different tricks, like flying up in the sky and jumping through rings and smashing through trees. Maybe a launch title for the Wii, but I still think it holds up really well. I still like playing this game every once in a while. And maybe if Nintendo were to remaster this game for the Switch, it would look really nice in HD. And maybe do a control scheme that's similar to what they did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where you could either play it with motion controls. Like, you could either, like, maybe they could do a thing where you either move the Switch like a steering wheel or play with just the Joy-Cons, or you could just play with the control sticks and the buttons. So Excite Truck is another game I would like to see maybe Nintendo consider at some point. So these are the 4 games that I would like to see Nintendo bring remaster for the Switch at some point. And I think if they were to increase the resolution of the textures in these games and make them HD, and maybe update the controls in order to take advantage of the differences between the Switch and the consoles these games came from, I think they would be really fun to play on the Switch. In terms of the likeliness of whether Nintendo will do this, I'm really kind of skeptical if they would even consider bringing them to Switch, especially Kirby Air Ride and Excite Truck, because they're kind of like niche games that aren't part of really big Nintendo franchises like Mario or Zelda. But if they were either to remaster these games or at least port them over, like maybe through some kind of virtual console service, I think that would be a lot of fun to play on the Switch. So yeah, these are the 4 games I would personally like to see Nintendo bring over to the Switch. What do you personally, what would you did the news that Nintendo brought over Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Sunshine to the Switch and the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection give you hope that maybe Nintendo will consider other GameCube and Wii games in the future? Let me know all those thoughts down below in the comments, and until next time, this has been Blood Moon Bobby, and thank you all for watching. Hi everyone, thanks for watching this Blood Moon Bobby video. Like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel to see more of my videos and ring the bell to be notified about my latest uploads. Don't forget to follow me on social media for my latest opinions and video updates. I hope to see you next time.